She never imagined a single beach photo would change her entire life. But when a mysterious man stepped off a private jet asking for her by name, her quiet world shifted forever. If someone crossed the world to meet you after seeing one picture, would you give them a chance or walk away? Tell me in the comments. Now, let's get back into the story. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. If you love stories that pull at your heartstrings and leave you reflecting long after they end, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I've got another emotional and inspiring story coming your way soon, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now, let's continue. Emma Hayes never imagined that a single beach photo would change her entire life. She was the kind of woman who posted online only when she felt like it, not for attention, not for validation, but simply because her friends insisted she should share more of her life. She wasn't an influencer, not even close. She was a 26-year-old preschool teacher from San Diego who lived on iced lattes, thrift store sundresses, and the joy she found in hearing children mispronounce big words. But that day, when her best friend Sydney convinced her to post just one bikini photo from their beach trip, Emma unknowingly set a story in motion that would race across the world. She didn't know it yet, but someone, somewhere, was about to see that photo and lose every bit of composure he had. And that someone was Luke Halloran. Luke wasn't just any man. He was a 33-year-old self-made millionaire from Chicago, the kind of man who built an empire before most people figured out their career path. He ran a tech logistics company worth tens of millions of dollars, employed hundreds of people, and had a reputation for being cold, focused, and almost impossible to shake emotionally. Everything about him screamed control, order, discipline. But all of that shattered the moment he saw her. It was late at night in his penthouse apartment. The city lights glowed through the wide glass windows as he finished a round of revisions on a merger proposal. His phone buzzed. A friend had tagged him in a random post, one of those casual notifications he usually ignored. But something made him click this one. And there she was. Emma, standing barefoot on warm sand, the golden sun lighting her skin, her hair curling from the ocean breeze, wearing a simple teal bikini that somehow made her look elegant instead of provocative. The pose wasn't forced, her smile wasn't staged, she wasn't trying to look perfect, she just was, natural, effortlessly stunning. Luke felt something hit him so sharply he almost exhaled out loud. It wasn't lust, it wasn't desire, it was something more dangerous, something that tugged beneath his ribs. He zoomed in. Then again. Then again. He didn't even realize he was doing it. Somewhere inside him, an emotion he didn't like, jealousy, flared. Because standing right there beside Emma in that photo was another man, a tall guy, grinning, his arm casually slung around her shoulder like he belonged there. Luke felt his jaw clench. He didn't know who the man was. He didn't know what their relationship was. And he hated him instantly. Luke rubbed his temples trying to make sense of his reaction. He hadn't reacted like this in years. He didn't date casually, he didn't mingle, he didn't chase, not since his last relationship, one that ended with betrayal and a long scar of mistrust, had he let himself feel anything close to attraction, let alone jealousy. He scrolled to Emma's profile. Her page was small. Barely 1,000 followers. A few pictures of her students' art projects, photos of sunsets, pictures of her and Sydney at brunch laughing over waffles, and only a few photos where she dressed up for special events. She wasn't playing the social media game. She wasn't performing. She was real. And that terrified him. Meanwhile, Emma had absolutely no idea that some millionaire in Chicago was staring at her beach photo like it was oxygen. She was just sitting at a cafe with Sydney, sipping an iced caramel latte and laughing about something trivial, probably the fact that her sandals had snapped earlier and she spent half the morning walking barefoot like a child of the ocean. "Girl, that bikini photo's doing numbers," Sydney said, tapping her screen. "Numbers? It's just a picture." Aha, 62 comments, almost 1,000 likes. This is the most you've ever gotten. Emma smiled awkwardly. Compliments never sat comfortably with her. She wasn't someone who felt glamorous or alluring. She was just Emma. A few tables away, a group of girls giggled, whispering as they glanced at her. Emma felt her heart stutter. She wasn't used to attention, and she certainly wasn't looking for it. Little did she know, this was only the smallest beginning. Because while she sipped her coffee, Luke was gripping his phone in Chicago, fighting the urge to do something ridiculous, irrational, impulsive. Something he had never done in his life. He paced around his apartment. The clock ticked, the city hummed, and every few seconds he found himself clicking back to that same photo. The jealousy simmered deeper every time he noticed that man's arm around her shoulders. Who was he? Was he her boyfriend? Was he someone important? And why did he feel like he was losing something that was never his to begin with? His friend, who had tagged him in the post, texted him. "Bro, you okay? You've been staring at that photo for like 20 minutes. He exhaled sharply. He typed back, "Who is she?" A moment passed, then another, and then... "Her name's Emma Hayes. My cousin knows her friend. She's in San Diego. Teacher or something." Something inside Luke clicked so loudly it startled him. San Diego. Across the country. And yet his mind whispered something absurd. Go there. He rubbed his face. He wasn't impulsive. He didn't travel without purpose. He didn't chase after strangers because of one photo. He had an entire company to run. But logic wasn't winning. Every part of him was roaring with a single irrational impulse. Find her. Because he felt something he couldn't explain, an odd certainty that she was about to matter more than he ever expected. He opened his travel app. His fingers hovered. His heartbeat drummed. He booked the flight. A direct flight to San Diego, leaving in 12 hours. He stared at the confirmation email, stunned. What was he doing? What had she done to him? Why couldn't he stop? As the wheels of fate began to turn, Emma was still laughing with Sydney, completely unaware that a man she had never met, a man with power, wealth, and emotional walls thicker than skyscrapers, had just set his entire world on fire because of her. But she was about to find out, and nothing in her quiet, simple life would ever be the same again.
Emma Hayes had no idea the universe had just shifted on its axis. While she went about her evening folding laundry, meal prepping for the week, and humming along to an old Taylor Swift playlist, Luke Halloran was packing a suitcase with the kind of intensity most men reserved for emergencies. Because this felt like one. He kept telling himself he was being irrational, reckless, out of character, but every time he tried to talk himself out of it, that same image of Emma, sunlit skin, ocean-damp curls, soft smile, flashed through his mind like a pulse. It wasn't infatuation. It wasn't lust. His reaction was deeper than that, in a way that made no logical sense. It was as if he had seen a version of peace, of warmth, of something he didn't know he needed until it was right in front of him. And the worst part? He couldn't forget the guy in the photo, the man who stood beside her like he belonged there. As he zipped his suitcase, his second-in-command, Tyler, called. "Luke, we have the board briefing Monday. Don't tell me you're leaving town again." "Postpone it," Luke said flatly. There was a beat of stunned silence. Luke never postponed briefings. He never shifted meetings. He was the type of CEO who would call into a quarterly report from a hospital bed if he had to. "Is everything okay?" Tyler asked carefully. "Is this business-related? Personal?" Luke hesitated. No one asked him personal questions. No one dared. But Tyler had been with him from the beginning, before the money, before the skyscrapers, before the world knew his name. Finally, Luke answered, "I need to meet someone." Tyler did not push further. "All right," he said. "I'll shift the briefing." Luke hung up, sat on the edge of his immaculate bed, and pressed his palms into his eyes. He felt like a man who was walking into something enormous, but invisible. He just didn't know if it was fate or a mistake. On the other side of the country, Emma was texting her sister Lily. "You won't believe it, that beach picture is still blowing up." Lily responded instantly. "Sis, I told you you're stunning. You just never post." Emma rolled her eyes, even though no one could see it. Compliments made her skin feel warm and awkward, like wearing a dress that didn't quite fit. She typed back, "People are being weird in the comments, though. Like, one guy just wrote, 'I would fly across the world for her.'" Lily texted, "LOL. He probably would. Be careful out there." Emma laughed, but something in her stomach tightened. Be careful out there. Why did those words suddenly feel heavier than usual? By midnight, the post had hit 2,000 likes. Emma was shaken. She had never gotten attention like this. Not in high school, not in college, not even during the short months she tried dating apps. She was used to blending in, to being the quiet one, the nice one, the girl who listened more than she spoke. She didn't feel like someone who could make a man jealous. She didn't feel like someone worth flying across the country for. But thousands of strangers clearly thought differently. She powered off her phone and pushed it under her pillow like it was misbehaving.
At 3 a.m., Luke was in an Uber headed to O'Hare Airport. The streets of Chicago were nearly empty, and the city's glow stretched across the wet pavement like gold brushstrokes. The ride was quiet, too quiet. His mind filled the silence with questions he couldn't escape. What if she's with that guy? What if she thinks I'm insane? What if meeting her ruins the perfect image he had built in his mind? But another thought cut through the noise like a blade. What if I miss my chance? He wasn't the kind of man who believed in destiny, not until tonight. The driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Heading somewhere exciting?" "A little," Luke murmured. "Vacation?" A pause. "No, something else." The driver chuckled. "A woman." Luke's brows lifted. "How did you—" "Buddy, I've been driving this city 19 years, the driver said. "Guys don't take red-eye flights with that look unless a woman is involved." Luke actually smiled. Rare, tiny, almost a secret. "Maybe you're right." "I'm definitely right," the driver said with confidence. "But listen, if she's making you fly somewhere at 3 a.m., she's either special or trouble." Luke stared out the window. Maybe both. By sunrise, Emma was waking up to dozens more notifications. One caught her eye. A follow request from a verified account. Luke Holleran. She frowned. She wasn't into tech news, but even she recognized the name from somewhere. Articles, headlines, podcasts people played in the background. Wait, a millionaire? Following her? Her heart flipped, then dropped. No way. It had to be fake. She clicked the profile. It wasn't fake. Her breath stalled. Why would a man like him follow her? She scrolled through her notifications again. Another comment on her photo. "Who's the guy next to you?" Emma felt a chill. Another. "Your boyfriend is lucky." Her boyfriend? The man next to her was her cousin Matt. Suddenly, her peaceful morning felt disrupted, like someone had moved her furniture while she slept. As Emma brushed her hair in the bathroom mirror, her thoughts kept circling back to the same impossible idea. Why did this photo matter so much to people? Why did it draw in someone powerful? Why did it feel like something was stirring far beyond her control? She didn't know that at that exact moment, Luke was 37,000 feet in the air, staring at a plain window, replaying her smile like it was a memory instead of an image. He didn't know what he would say when he reached San Diego. He didn't know if she'd even talk to him. He didn't know how he would explain that he crossed the country because of a single moment captured in sunlight. But he knew one thing. He had made his decision. He was going to find her, and nothing, not distance, not fear, not logic, was going to stop him now. If someone flew across the world just to meet you after seeing one photo, would you feel flattered, scared, or curious, and why?
Emma Hayes had barely processed the morning chaos before a knock echoed through her apartment. Sharp, deliberate. It rattled the small frame of her front door, making her heart skip an unexpected beat. "Who could that be?" she muttered, pulling her robe tighter around her shoulders. She opened the door cautiously, only to freeze. Standing there, calm but imposing, was Luke Halloran. His tailored navy coat and the subtle gleam of his watch screamed precision. His eyes, a mix of intensity and curiosity, were fixed entirely on her. "Emma Hayes?" he asked. "Yes," she said cautiously. "Can I help you?" "Not exactly," Luke said, his voice soft but deliberate. "I need to talk to you." Emma's first instinct was to shut the door, lock it, pretend he wasn't there. A complete stranger, an incredibly rich stranger, was claiming he needed to talk to her because of a photo she had posted online. It sounded insane, dangerous even. "I think you have the wrong person," she said, her voice tight. "I don't," Luke said. He stepped forward just slightly, careful not to overstep, but the air between them thickened with tension. "I saw your photo, and I had to meet you." Emma's stomach twisted. "You flew across the country because of one picture?" Luke nodded slowly. "I know it sounds crazy. I know I probably sound crazy, but I couldn't ignore it." She wanted to laugh, then cry, then run. The mixture of fear and disbelief nearly knocked her to the floor. You just showed up. At my apartment." "Yes," he admitted. "I didn't know how else to do it." Emma stepped back, her hand gripping the doorframe for support. She felt small, fragile, like a deer caught in headlights. All she wanted was normalcy. Quiet days, her coffee ritual, her job, and maybe a few texts from her friends. Not a millionaire standing in her living room, claiming that her beach photo had driven him halfway across the world. I can't," she whispered, shaking her head. "This is too much." "I understand," Luke said carefully, keeping his hands visible, non-threatening. "I know this is sudden. I know you're probably wondering why I even came, but I had to try. Just for a moment, to meet you, to see if what I felt when I saw that photo was real." Emma wanted to laugh, then cry, then run. The mixture of fear and disbelief nearly knocked her to the floor. You just showed up. At my apartment." "Yes," he admitted. "I didn't know how else to do it." Emma stepped back, her hand gripping the doorframe for support. She felt small, fragile, like a deer caught in headlights. All she wanted was normalcy. Quiet days, her coffee ritual, her job, and maybe a few texts from her friends. Not a millionaire, standing in her living room, claiming that her beach photo had driven him halfway across the world. I can't," she whispered, shaking her head. "This is too much." "I understand," Luke said carefully, keeping his hands visible, non-threatening. "I know this is sudden. I know you're probably wondering why I even came, but I had to try. Just for a moment, to meet you, to see if what I felt when I saw that photo was real." Emma wanted to slam the door. She wanted to scream at him for disrupting her life, but yet a part of her, the tiny, cautious, curious part, was drawn to him. "I don't even know you," she said finally. "Why should I believe anything you're saying?"
Because I'm not asking for anything from you, Luke said, his voice steady. I'm not asking for your time or your trust yet. I just wanted a chance to explain. Her gaze dropped to the floor. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her screamed not to. I realize this looks insane, like something out of a bad movie. Luke smiled faintly, a mix of apology and acknowledgement. I know, and I wouldn't blame you for walking away. I had to try. Emma hesitated. Fear warred with curiosity. Logic screamed, run. Heart whispered, listen. She inhaled slowly. Okay, she said finally. 5 minutes. That's all I can give you. Luke's lips curved slightly at her words. A small victory, though nothing about this moment felt like victory yet. Luke followed her to the small living room, where sunlight filtered through thin curtains, casting gentle patterns across the furniture. He took a seat, careful not to invade her space. Emma perched on the edge of the couch, arms crossed, eyes wary. They sat in silence for a few seconds, the kind of silence that feels loaded, like the air itself is holding its breath. Finally, Luke spoke. I'm Luke Holleran, Chicago, business. Nothing about me here matters except that I saw your photo, and it felt different, honest, real. I had to know if you were really you. Emma frowned. That's not exactly comforting. I know. It sounds absurd, and maybe I am absurd. I've spent years controlling everything in my life. I've built walls so high that almost nothing gets through. But for some reason, your photo pierced all that. Emma's brow furrowed. And the jealousy? She asked cautiously, recalling the comment she had read online. Luke winced. Yes, I can't lie. There was jealousy. Seeing that other guy with you, it burned me in a way I haven't felt in years. But it wasn't shallow. It was more than that. I was drawn to everything about you, not just the photo. Emma's chest tightened. She didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to dismiss him. Part of her wanted to believe him. She didn't trust the emotion radiating from him yet, didn't trust that anyone could genuinely care because of something so small, but she was intrigued. I don't even know what to do with this, she admitted. Luke leaned forward slightly, hands clasped. You don't have to decide anything. I'm not asking for anything from you, not yet. I just wanted a chance to meet you, to see if this is real. For me, it is, but I'm not here to demand anything from you. Emma blinked. His honesty hit her in a way that surprised her. Usually, people said whatever they thought she wanted to hear, but he didn't. His words carried weight. They were heavy and careful and real. Still, fear lingered. I can't just accept this. You show up out of nowhere. It's not normal. No, it's not. And I wouldn't ask you to, but I couldn't ignore it either. I had to try. Emma looked away, tracing patterns on the rug with her eyes. Something about the way he spoke, something about the quiet intensity in his gaze, made her pulse quicken and her heart race. She had to resist. She had to resist. Not because he was wrong, not because he was dangerous, but because it was too sudden, too much, too unreal. She nodded slowly. Okay, I hear you. But that's it. I need to think, and I'm not promising anything else. Luke gave a small, respectful nod. That's all I ask. One conversation. That's it.
If someone appeared at your door from across the world because of a single photo, would you give them a chance, or would you walk away? Comment below and tell me what you would do. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of a persistent buzz from her phone. She groaned, expecting work emails or group chats, but instead saw a single notification. Luke Holleran, are you ready to talk? Her pulse jumped. She hadn't agreed to anything beyond the 5 minutes yesterday. She hadn't expected him to still be here. And yet, there it was, a message that implied he had lingered. Before she could reply, there was a soft knock at the door. Emma froze. I thought we were done, she muttered under her breath. She opened the door cautiously. Luke stood there again, this time in a casual gray sweater and jeans. He held nothing in his hands, no briefcase, no gifts, just himself, calm and expectant. I thought we could talk, he said simply. Emma crossed her arms. You've been outside my door since… when? Midnight? Luke hesitated. I didn't want to leave, not until we had a proper conversation. Emma blinked. A flush rose to her cheeks. She had to resist. She had to resist. She wasn't supposed to let a stranger, no, a millionaire stranger, dictate the pace of her life. I'm busy, she said firmly, stepping back to indicate he shouldn't follow her in. I know, Luke said, but I had a flight booked to leave San Diego tonight. Then I realized, if I left without trying again, I'd regret it forever. I need to understand something about you, about us, if that's possible. Emma sighed, torn between logic and curiosity. You're insane, she said, but her tone was softer now, almost reluctant. Luke's smile was soft, almost vulnerable. Life rarely fits into simple boxes.
Later, they ended up at a small coffee shop, one Emma frequented often. Luke waited patiently while she ordered her latte, never pushing, never rushing. He simply watched, absorbing the small details of her world, the way she laughed with the barista, the subtle tilt of her head as she thought, the way she hesitated before saying something she wasn't sure about. Emma found herself talking more than she expected, about her students, her art sketches, her favorite books. She didn't know why she was opening up, but his listening was different, attentive, without judgment, without pressure. I never expected someone like you to care about any of this, she said, sipping her latte, eyes downcast. Luke's gaze softened. I'm not like other people, he said quietly, and I've realized that the things that matter most aren't trophies or money. It's connection, real connection. And you feel real. Emma blinked. Her heart thumped uncomfortably. She wanted to resist. She wanted to remind herself that he was a stranger, that this was reckless. And yet, there was a pull she couldn't deny. By evening, circumstances forced them into even closer proximity. A sudden downpour trapped them under the awning of a small bookstore. Emma laughed nervously as water splashed around her shoes. I guess we're stuck here for a while, she said. Luke offered a hand. Seems that way. Not the worst place to be stuck. Hours passed. Conversation ebbed and flowed naturally, punctuated by comfortable silences. Emma noticed how different it felt to talk without pretense, without hidden motives. Luke was real, honest, vulnerable in small, unexpected ways. She felt her walls crack slightly, just slightly. I don't usually do this, let strangers invade my life. Luke's gaze met hers. I don't usually do this either, but sometimes life gives you moments that don't wait for convenience or caution. Emma's pulse quickened. She was aware of the electricity in the air, the tension that made the world feel smaller, quieter, more intimate. Forced proximity had stripped away her usual defenses. She was compelled to see him, to hear him, to consider that maybe this stranger could be more than a brief curiosity. If someone persistent and sincere showed up in your life unexpectedly, would you let them in or maintain your distance? Share your thoughts in the comments. How far would you let someone go before trusting them?
The rain had stopped by the next morning, leaving the streets glistening and fresh with the scent of wet asphalt. Emma opened her window to let in the crisp air, but she felt restless. Luke was still in her apartment. He hadn't left since the day before, though she hadn't asked him to. She tried to ignore the tension in the air, the unspoken question hovering between them. What now? Luke, sitting on the couch with his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, watched her quietly. He didn't speak. He didn't intrude. He simply existed, as if his presence had become part of her apartment, part of her day. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "I don't understand why you're really here," she said softly. "You got everything you could want. Why risk this?" Luke inhaled slowly. His gaze dropped to his mug before meeting hers again. "Because I didn't have everything. Not really. Not the part that matters most." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then let the words spill out like he'd been holding them underwater for years. "I grew up different. My parents were always busy, always absent in ways that mattered. I learned early on to rely on myself, to build walls, to hide anything that felt like vulnerability." Emma sat down across from him, surprised. She hadn't expected this side of him, the vulnerable, unguarded side of the millionaire. "I've spent years chasing success, controlling every detail, making sure nothing could ever hurt me again. And then I saw your photo. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want control. I didn't want to hide. I wanted connection. I wanted someone who saw me without walls." Emma's chest tightened. His honesty struck a chord she hadn't anticipated. She realized she was leaning in slightly, listening, absorbing, though she tried to hide it. "And you?" Luke asked gently. "Why are you so guarded?" Emma hesitated. It wasn't something she shared easily, not even with her closest friends. But something about Luke, maybe his quiet persistence, maybe the vulnerability in his eyes, made her feel safe enough to begin. I've always been careful," she admitted. "I grew up in a small family. My parents split when I was young. I learned quickly that people leave or disappoint or just aren't there. So I keep things close, my life small, my world controlled. I get that, more than you know." She looked down at her hands, tracing the lines of her fingers. "And I've never felt like anyone saw me, really. Not the messy parts, the quiet parts, the parts I hide even from myself." Luke's eyes softened. "That's exactly what I see. And that's why I'm here. Not because of a photo, not because of jealousy, but because I felt something I haven't felt in years, something I couldn't ignore."
Emma felt a mix of emotions: shock, disbelief, curiosity, and something else, something she hadn't expected. Her walls, carefully constructed for years, were starting to tremble. She didn't want to admit it, but she wanted to know him, to understand why he had flown across the country for her, to see if the connection he claimed was real. Luke broke the silence again, carefully, almost afraid to speak too loudly. "I know I can't erase your fears. I know I can't make you trust me. But I need you to know the truth, not just about me, but about why I'm here." Emma's lips parted slightly. "And that truth is?" "That I've never felt this before. And I don't know what it means, but I do know I couldn't leave without trying to understand it, without trying to understand you." Emma's heart raced. She wanted to resist, to retreat, to remind herself that this was insane. But every word, every glance, every pause between them made it harder to pull back. Hours later, As the afternoon sun warmed the apartment, Luke and Emma found themselves flipping through old photos on her laptop. They laughed softly at childhood memories she shared. A picture of her in a Halloween costume, a school art project gone hilariously wrong, a beach trip with friends. And then Emma stopped. She hesitated. "There's one thing I've never told anyone. Something I don't usually share." Luke leaned closer. "You can tell me. I'm listening." She took a deep breath. "When I was younger, before I even started teaching, I lost someone very important to me. My grandmother. She raised me. She was the one person who believed in me no matter what. Losing her, it left a hole. I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone get that close again." Luke's hand brushed hers lightly. "I understand that kind of loss, more than you know." Emma looked at him, studying his face. She saw the scars behind his eyes, the silent pain he rarely showed. She realized suddenly that they were both broken in ways they hadn't shared with anyone. And yet, in that moment, it felt like they were beginning to repair each other. Evening came, and they remained close, reluctant to leave the fragile connection they had started to form. Forced proximity had created an unspoken bond. Sitting across from each other, sharing stories of pain and loss, they began to understand the depth of what had brought them together. It wasn't just a bikini photo. It wasn't just jealousy. It was recognition, a resonance of wounds and vulnerabilities mirrored in each other's eyes. And with that understanding came the first flicker of trust. Emma realized she didn't have to let him in completely, not yet, but she could allow a small piece of her guarded heart to acknowledge the possibility of something real. Luke realized that she wasn't just a fleeting image on a screen. She was real, complicated, beautiful, and alive. And he would do whatever it took to see her truly, beyond the photo, beyond the initial impulse. Have you ever met someone who instantly understood parts of you you hide from everyone else? How did it feel? And would you let them in? Share your experience in the comments below.
By the time the weekend rolled around, the city seemed to belong only to Emma and Luke. The streets of San Diego, usually bustling, now felt intimate, almost protective, as if the universe had carved out a small space for them alone. Emma had hesitated in the beginning, telling herself this was temporary, a strange encounter, a wealthy stranger with too much audacity. And yet, the hours they had spent together, the conversations, the shared silences, had chipped away at her resolve. Luke had a way of listening that didn't just hear words. He absorbed them. He noticed the subtle flicker of her eyes when she was nervous, the slight laugh she tried to hide when amused, the moments when she wanted to retreat but didn't. On Saturday morning, they found themselves at a small, quiet art studio, tucked between two old brick buildings. Emma had mentioned once that she used to paint but had stopped after college. Luke had remembered. "You haven't picked up a brush in years?" he asked, curiosity softening the edges of his voice. Emma shrugged. "Life, work, fear, I guess. I wasn't sure anyone would care." Luke gestured toward a canvas and some paints laid out for them. "Let's find out," he said with a grin. Reluctantly, Emma picked up a brush. Luke did the same, though his strokes were cautious, measured, like he feared making a mistake. But there was laughter too. Shared chuckles as Luke accidentally splattered a dab of blue paint onto Emma's hand. She smirked at him, shaking her hand at the tiny smear. "See?" she said, laughing. You're not as perfect as your public image suggests." Luke feigned offense, though the corner of his mouth twitched. "You wound me." For the first time since their meeting, Emma felt completely at ease. Not guarded, not defensive, just present. Hours passed with casual conversation, painting, and small moments of quiet connection. They discussed favorite books, childhood memories, and the dreams they had abandoned along the way. Emma laughed more than she had in months, and Luke seemed to relax in ways that surprised her. At one point, Luke paused, holding his brush over the canvas. He admitted, "I don't usually let myself be this open. Not with anyone. But with you, it feels natural." Emma's heart fluttered. She realized she felt the same way. There was no pretense, no posturing, no walls between them. Only two people slowly learning the contours of each other's hearts. Later that afternoon, they walked along the boardwalk near the beach, the salty breeze whipping Emma's hair across her face. Luke tugged her hand gently, guiding her away from the crowds and toward a quieter stretch. "You've got sand in your hair," he said softly, brushing a strand back behind her ear. Emma felt warmth bloom in her chest, a blush she couldn't hide. "Thanks," she murmured. They sat together on a weathered bench, feet dangling above the sand. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was steady, calming. They didn't need words for a while, just the rhythm of the ocean and the gentle proximity of each other.
Then Luke spoke, his voice low. "Emma, I know this is sudden. I know I appeared in your life out of nowhere. But I want you to know I'm not here to rush you. I'm here because I see you. And I want to see more if you'll let me." Emma's breath caught. The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. Her walls, which had protected her for so long, now seemed almost unnecessary. Almost. I don't know if I can just trust this yet," she said, her voice soft but firm. "It's all so sudden, and Luke reached out, lightly touching her hand. "You don't have to trust me fully, not yet. But maybe just let yourself feel a little. Just a little." Her fingers lingered against his. Just a little. The afternoon stretched into evening, and Luke suggested grabbing dinner. They wandered to a small local bistro, tucked away from the bustling streets. Candlelight flickered across the table as they shared a meal, laughing at clumsy bites and accidental spills. Emma caught herself thinking about how normal it felt, despite everything being anything but normal. "You're different than anyone I've ever met," she admitted, smiling softly. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It is," she said. "You make it feel okay to be real, even with all your status." Luke chuckled. "I'm just a guy who got lucky in business. Everything else, I'm figuring out, like you." There was an ease between them now, a fragile bond forming. Humor and vulnerability had created a bridge where walls once existed. Emma felt a spark of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope. As they walked back to her apartment that night, the city lights reflected in the water, creating a shimmering path. Luke stopped and turned to her. "Emma, I know we've only just met, and I know everything about this is unconventional, but I want you to know I don't take this lightly. You matter, more than I can explain." Emma swallowed hard, feeling the depth of his words. Her walls had cracked enough to let a small piece of her heart peek through. I think I understand, but I'm still scared." "That's okay. Scared means you care, and I'll be patient." Have you ever felt an unexpected connection with someone who suddenly entered your life?
How did you know if it was real or just a fleeting moment? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
The weekend had started like a dream, but Monday arrived with a storm of reality. Emma had returned to her teaching routine, her small classroom filled with the chatter of students, the clatter of books, and the comforting hum of normalcy. Yet, the phone call from Luke earlier that morning had left a lingering tension. "I need to fly back to Chicago for a sudden meeting," he'd said, voice tight. "I'll be gone a couple of days. I'll call you tonight." Emma had nodded, swallowing the disappointment that threatened to spill over. She told herself it was logical, business first, life second. But as the hours passed, anxiety settled in like a weight on her chest. By evening, she was scrolling through her social media to distract herself when she noticed a post that made her stomach drop. A photo of Luke at a gala in Chicago, arm in arm with another woman, smiling, laughing, close. Her heart lurched. She felt a sharp pang of betrayal. He was lying to me, she whispered to herself, pacing the apartment. He said he'd call. He said he cared. Emma's mind raced. Every memory, every tender moment of the past 2 days felt tainted by suspicion. Had she been foolish? Naive? She picked up her phone to call him but hesitated. Her fingers hovered above the screen, trembling. What would she say? Would he even answer? Finally, unable to resist, she dialed. The call rang. Once. Twice. Then voicemail. Her chest tightened. She sank onto the couch, wrapping her arms around her knees. The trust she had begun to build was crumbling. Her heart felt heavy, as if the fragile bond they had nurtured had been ripped away in an instant. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Luke was oblivious to the storm brewing at Emma's apartment. The gala had been a last-minute invitation, a business networking event. The woman in the photo was a client's assistant, helping him navigate the crowd. One quick snapshot, misinterpreted out of context, had already begun a chain reaction he couldn't yet predict. Returning to his hotel room, he immediately called Emma, only to find her voicemail. His chest tightened. Something told him this was serious. Back in San Diego, Emma's emotions swung wildly. Anger, hurt, confusion, and doubt tangled together. She couldn't think straight. Every loving word Luke had spoken seemed tainted by what she saw in that single photograph. Finally, she texted, her fingers shaking. "I saw the photo. I don't know what to believe anymore." No reply came immediately. She put her phone down, feeling the echo of her own heartbeat in the silence. Hours later, Luke returned her message. "Emma, please, it's not what it looks like. I need to explain." But the damage was done. Emma stared at the screen, debating. Could she trust him? Could she believe the explanation without feeling foolish? Her instincts screamed to protect herself, to guard her heart, to walk away. When he called again, her voice was tight, sharp, defensive. "I saw the picture, Luke. I don't know what to believe. Were you lying to me? Was anything real?"
Luke's tone was calm, measured, but desperate. "Emma, I swear to you, everything I said is true. I care about you. I flew across the country to see you. That woman at the gala, she's a client's assistant, helping me with introductions. It wasn't personal. I never meant to hurt you." Emma's eyes welled with tears. "It's too much. I can't—" "Emma," he interrupted gently, "please, don't let this one picture undo everything we've started. I'm not perfect. I'm human. But what I feel for you, that's real. I promise." Her hands shook as she pressed the phone to her chest. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. But the fear, the betrayal, even imagined, was suffocating. That night, Emma lay in bed, replaying every word, every touch, every laugh with Luke. Was it real? Or had she been naive, letting a stranger into her life too quickly? Her mind drifted to the first time he had shown up at her door, the sincerity in his eyes, the moments of laughter and vulnerability. Could she trust what her heart wanted over what her fear dictated? She closed her eyes, tears streaming silently, feeling the weight of doubt press down. For the first time, she questioned if she had been too open, too quick to let someone in. The connection she had cherished now seemed fragile, threatened by a single misinterpreted moment. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting long lines across Emma's bedroom floor. Her mind was still tangled in the previous night's turmoil. She had barely slept, haunted by the photograph, the doubt, the fear of being hurt again. Her heart ached, yet somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, Luke's words were true. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand. She hesitated before picking it up. A single text from Luke. Emma, I know I can't undo what you saw, but I want to be honest. Can we talk, face to face? Her fingers trembled as she typed, paused, and finally deleted a reply. She didn't know if she could trust herself to speak without emotion clouding everything. Luke arrived at her apartment an hour later. He looked worn, his usually confident posture tinged with exhaustion. His eyes searched hers the moment the door opened. "Emma," he said softly, "please, just hear me out." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I don't know if I can, Luke. I don't know if I should." He nodded. The vulnerability in his eyes made it hard for her to maintain her defenses. "I understand. I've never asked you to trust me blindly, but I am asking you to consider what's real between us, beyond one photo, beyond fear." Emma studied him, seeing the exhaustion, the honesty, the small cracks in the armor he usually wore. She felt her own walls trembling. She could run, she could shut him out, but she realized that doing so would mean losing something rare, something she had never expected to find. They sat across from each other at her kitchen table. The silence stretched long and heavy. The decision weighed on both of them, to let fear dictate their actions or to choose vulnerability and risk everything for the possibility of love. Luke reached across the table, lightly brushing her hand. "Emma, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes in life, in love, but what I feel for you is real, and I can't leave this in doubt. I need to know, will you let me in? Not a little, not halfway, but fully." Her chest tightened. She could feel the truth in his words, the sincerity that mirrored her own feelings. But the voice of doubt, honed by years of being careful, hissed warnings. "Don't get hurt. Don't trust too quickly." She closed her eyes for a long moment, imagining the life that could unfold if she took the leap. Laughter, shared moments, tenderness, connection. And then the life if she retreated, loneliness, regret, the persistent what-if gnawing at her heart. When she opened her eyes, she saw Luke waiting, patience and hope in equal measure. She began, voice trembling. "I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to let one moment, one misunderstanding decide what this could be."
Luke's expression softened, relief washing over his features. "You mean you'll take the chance?" Emma nodded. "Yes, I'll take the chance, but only if you promise honesty. No games, no secrets, ever again." "I promise," he said, his hand finally covering hers fully. Warmth spread through her, filling the spaces fear had hollowed out. They stood then, leaning slightly into each other, the tension of the past days melting into quiet anticipation.
The choice had been made, not out of recklessness, but from courage, from willingness to trust despite vulnerability. Luke's hand lifted to her cheek, brushing away a stray strand of hair. "I've wanted this. Us. Since the first moment I saw you. I'll wait. I'll prove it. But I need you to know I'm serious. This isn't fleeting." Emma leaned into the touch, feeling the electricity between them. "I believe you. I want this too." For the first time, she felt the fragile spark of hope blossom into something tangible, something real. That evening, they walked along the pier, hand in hand, the city lights reflecting off the water. Silence was no longer uncomfortable. It was full of meaning, a shared understanding that they had both chosen each other despite fear, doubt, and misunderstanding. Luke paused, looking out over the ocean. "Emma, I know life isn't perfect, and I know challenges will come, but I promise I'll never take this for granted. You've given me a gift I didn't know I could have. Someone who sees me." Emma smiled softly, squeezing his hand. "And you've given me the courage to see, to trust, to feel again." They watched the waves crash, letting the moment stretch, savoring the calm after the storm. The choice had been made, the walls had come down, and though the future remained unknown, they had each other. And for now, that was enough. Have you ever faced a choice where fear and trust were in direct conflict? How did you decide? And what did you learn about yourself in the process? Share your experience in the comments below. The following week brought a calm Emma hadn't experienced in months. The tension that had hung between them like a storm cloud had lifted, replaced with a tentative but growing sense of peace. Luke stayed in San Diego longer than expected. Business trips were rescheduled, meetings postponed. He made it clear, not with grand declarations or expensive gestures, but with consistent presence and attention, that Emma mattered more than convenience, more than his schedule. On Thursday evening, Luke invited Emma to a small rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, reflecting off the glass towers around them. The scene was breathtaking, but Emma's focus was entirely on him. "Emma," Luke began, voice low, eyes fixed on hers, "I know what we've been through in just a few days has been intense, confusing, even scary. But I need you to know that what I feel isn't fleeting. You've changed something in me, made me see a life I didn't know I could have." Emma's chest tightened. "Luke, I've felt the same. I've been scared, but I trust you now. I want this too." He smiled softly, a mixture of relief and tenderness. "Then I want to make a promise, not just words but actions, to be here, to be honest, to be present, to build something real with you, one day, one moment at a time." Emma reached out, taking both his hands in hers. The warmth of his palms grounded her, the sincerity in his eyes convincing her that the leap of faith she had taken was the right one. That evening, they walked along the pier, hands intertwined. The waves lapped gently against the shore, a rhythm that matched their newfound harmony. Emma realized how much her heart had opened, not just to Luke, but to the idea of love itself. It wasn't a whirlwind of passion or fantasy. It was a quiet, steady connection forged through honesty, vulnerability, and courage. At one point, Luke stopped and looked at her with a playful glint. "You know, if it weren't for that one bikini photo, none of this would have happened." Emma laughed, shaking her head. "Don't remind me. That photo nearly ruined everything before it even started."
He chuckled, tugging her close. And yet, it brought me to you. Maybe sometimes mistakes or accidents lead to exactly what we're meant to find.
Days turned into weeks, and their connection deepened. Emma invited Luke to meet her friends and colleagues. He shared stories of his life beyond business, vulnerabilities he rarely exposed. They learned each other's rhythms, preferences, and quirks. One afternoon, while sharing coffee on her balcony, Emma said softly, "I never imagined this, that I'd meet someone who challenges me, supports me, and makes me feel safe, all at once." Luke smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Neither did I, but sometimes life surprises you in the most unexpected ways." She leaned into him, feeling the weight of fear and doubt dissolve completely. She had chosen trust, courage, and love, and in return, she had been met with the same. Weeks later, Luke flew Emma to Chicago, not for business, but to share a part of his world with her. He showed her the places that had shaped him, the small cafes he loved, the parks where he found solitude. Emma realized how much he had changed for her, not in superficial ways, but in being open, patient, and fully present. One evening, standing on the balcony of his penthouse apartment overlooking the city lights, Luke took Emma's hands. "Emma, this is just the beginning. What we have, it's rare. I promise to never take it for granted, and I hope you'll continue to let me in, fully, every day." Emma smiled, feeling the certainty in her heart. "I will. I trust you, Luke. And I love you, not just for the excitement, but for the way you make me feel safe to be myself." He pulled her close, their foreheads touching, breathing the same air, sharing the same space. The connection that began with a single impulsive flight had blossomed into something enduring, genuine, and transformative. Weeks later, while walking along the beach, Emma caught sight of a photo she had taken of the sunset and laughed. "Remember the photo that started it all?" Luke grinned. "How could I forget? It nearly broke us before it even began." Emma shook her head, smiling. "And yet, it brought you to me. Somehow, some way, it worked out exactly as it should." Luke kissed her forehead softly. Exactly as it should. For Emma and Luke, the past misunderstandings, doubts, and fears were now echoes in a larger story. A story of courage, trust, and unexpected love. What began as a fleeting moment had evolved into a connection neither would ever take for granted. They had chosen each other, and in that choice, they found joy, healing, and a love they knew would endure. Have you ever experienced love that started unexpectedly but transformed your life completely? How did you embrace it despite fear or doubt? Share your story in the comments below. What lessons did you take away from Emma and Luke's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insight could help someone else navigate love, trust, or second chances today. If stories like this make sure to follow our channel for more emotional, powerful journeys that remind us what courage, vulnerability, and unexpected love truly mean.
Thank you so much for watching this story all the way through. I hope it touched your heart as deeply as it did mine. We've got many more uplifting and heartfelt stories waiting for you. So go ahead and click the video on your screen to enjoy the next one. You're going to love it.